where you can use secondary changes. We have attrition, parodontosis, secondary dentin, root resorption, transparency, and symmetry. There are 6 criteria available. You know the mnemonic APSRTC, Andhra Pradesh State Road Transport Corporation. Right? So Andhra Pradesh State Road Transport Corporation, APSRTC, 6 criteria are there. Right? These are microscopic. Right? Attrition means wear and tear, erosion of the teeth. You can directly see that. Parodontosis also, gum changes. You can directly see that. Right? Of all these criteria, remember, if they ask you which is the most reliable criteria, the most reliable criteria is your transparency of the root. Second reliable one is secondary dentin. Right? Second reliable will be secondary dentin. If you see from anterior to posterior, the reliability keeps on coming down. That means, remember, central incisor will be the most reliable tooth for this method. Whereas you go from anterior to posterior, gradually the reliability comes down. Third molar will not be reliable at all, least reliable. Right? So remember, that is important. Gustafson's criteria. Now moving on to Boyd's method. This method is useful for children, wherein you can count incremental lines in the tooth. Right? You can count incremental lines in the tooth. The first line that will appear, that is called neonatal line. The first line that will appear, that is called neonatal line. That line will appear on day 2 or day 3. After that, every day one line will appear. So you need to basically count the number of lines. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like that you have to count, and you can find out the age of the child. Right? Neonatal. Presence of neonatal line itself is a sign of live-born. How do you say that? Because neonatal line starts only on day 2, day 3. No, the baby should be alive for at least 2 days. Right? Then only the neonatal line will appear. So it has to be a sign of live-born baby. There is another method that is called Stack's method. Stack's method is where you can see the height and weight of the tooth. Useful, very useful for infantile period, infants. Stack's method. Now going for dental charting, you have a lot of methods of dental charting: universal method, Palmer's notation, Hader-Rupp system, and FDA method. Right? So I'll just tell you a brief details about that. Number 1, that is universal method. Universal method, the oldest one, where you just have to keep numbering 1 to 16 and 17 to 32 permanent teeth. Likewise, you need to use alphabet for temporary teeth. 1 to 32. You have to keep on going like that. Oldest. Then you have Palmer's notation. Palmer's notation stated that for every quadrant you have to count from 1 to 8, from medial to lateral. 1 to 8, 1 to 8, 1 to 8. Like that. For temporary teeth, alphabetically ABCDE, 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 ABC. For all the 4 quadrants you have to see. 1 will be central incisor, 2 will be lateral incisor, 3 will be canine, 4 will be premolar 1, 5 will be premolar 2, 6 will be molar 1, 7 will be molar 2, and 8 will be molar 3. Suppose if they give you 5, that means premolar 2. If they give you A7, that is molar, permanent molar 7. Permanent molar 2. 7 means permanent molar 2. But how will you know which quadrant it is? Suppose if I write like this, it is a molar 2 in the right upper quadrant. If I write like this, it is a molar 2 in the left upper quadrant. If I write like this, it is a molar 2 in the left lower quadrant. If I write like this, it is a molar 2 in the right lower quadrant. You need to make symbols. Palmer's notation. Very difficult. So next one is Hader-Rupp system. Hader-Rupp system used plus symbol for all the maxillary teeth and minus symbol for all the mandibular teeth. Lower jaw minus, upper jaw plus. Hader-Rupp system. But again, there was a problem in knowing right side or left side. You talk about that. If I say 3, it is a canine. If I put the symbol on the right side of the number, it is right side. Right side canine. If I put the symbol to the left side of the number, that means it is left side canine. Right? So remember, again, this was difficult, right? So we'll go for the easiest one, that is FDA method. This is FDA method. Again, you can see all the numbers 1 to 8, 1 to 8, 1 to 8. But here, in front of the tooth number, you have one more number to it. We call it as prefix. Right? You need to add prefix. For all the permanent teeth, remember the prefix 1 for the right upper quadrant. That is the reason why you can see 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Right? For all the teeth in the left upper quadrant, you need to have a prefix of 2. You can see 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, like that. You have to have up to 28, 2, 8. For all the teeth in the left lower quadrant, prefix will be 3. You can see 3, 1, 2, 3, 8. Likewise, the right lower quadrant, the prefix is 4. You can see 4, 1, 2, 4, 8. 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 3. Like that, you need to have up to 4, 8. Right? So remember, if it is 1 prefix, it is right upper quadrant. If it is 2 prefix, left upper quadrant. If it is 3 prefix, left lower quadrant. 4 prefix, it is a right lower quadrant. Permanent teeth. For temporary, similarly, 5 for right upper, 6 for left upper, 7 for left lower, 8 for right lower. If I tell you it is 1, 8, right? The first number will tell you which quadrant it is, prefix, that is your right upper quadrant. 8 will be the molar tooth number. The first number will tell you which quadrant it is, second number will tell you which tooth it is, right? So if I say 2, 4, the first number 2 tells you it is left upper quadrant, second number 4 tooth number, that tells you it is premolar 1. Right? So remember, this is important. And one common mistake which all people do is, see, they'll write 1, 2, 3, 4. No zigzag. It has to go clockwise. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Left lower will be having prefix of 3. Since it's having 2 numbers for each tooth, this FDA method, it is also called as 2-digit system because you have 1 prefix added to that. This is the best one, internationally used, widely accepted by people. What is the first tooth to appear? Right? It is a lower central incisor. I told you this. What is the first tooth for permanent dentition? That is molar 1. Stature, I told you. You need to have a bone length. From the bone length, you can find out the stature of the person. Right? This board is called osteometric board. You can have regression formula, you can have multiplication factor, and you can also have percentile formula. A lot of methods are there. I told you femur gives you 20. This is the easiest one. Femur 27%. Right? Tibia 22%. And humerus, that is 20%. With this, you'll be able to find out the stature of the person. Now coming to the fingerprinting, dactylography. Right? You see, dactylography, this is the best method I told you. Right? We have a system called Galton system of fingerprinting. He was a person who systematized. It is different even in twins. That's why it is better than DNA fingerprinting, and it is not inherited for, parents and kids will not have same fingerprint. When does it develop? Remember, it develops at the age of, all this is in the intrauterine life, before birth itself, fetal age, right? 12 to 16th week of intrauterine life it starts. It gets completed around 20 to 24 weeks of intrauterine life. You can't remember anything, right? So how can you remember? You can remember 3, 4, 5, 6. You make it into months. 3 to 4 months it starts, 5 to 6 months it gets completed. Right? Not after birth, before birth. You see the pattern available. You can see this pattern is called loop pattern. Either it starts from one side, it goes to the top, it comes back to the same side, that is called loop. If you can see concentric circles, it is called verse. You can see ridge starts from one side, it goes to the top, moves on the opposite side itself, that is called arch. And 2, 3 pattern together, right? We call it as composite, mixed pattern. Which is the most common pattern? Most common will be loop. 65% of the general population will be having loop. Second common is verse, third common is arch, and least one will be composite. I have given you in the descending order. Loops, verse, arch, and composite. You can remember LWAC, loop, verse, arch, and composite. Right? Now, what happens is you have to have fingerprint. Suppose this is a fingerprint taken from the SOC, that means scene of crime. This is a fingerprint taken from the suspect. I would like to know whether both fingerprint belongs to the same person. So how will you compare the fingerprint pattern? Remember, you're not supposed to compare the patterns of fingerprint. You're not supposed to compare the pattern of fingerprint. You have to compare the rich characters. We call it as minutiae. There are a lot of rich characters available. It can be termination, bifurcation, lake. You have a lot of characters are there. You have to look at that, whether it is matching or not. When you look at this, you can see that here there is termination. Right? So this is called termination. You can see there is branching as well. You need to look at the other fingerprint, whether it is exactly matching or not. If at least 12 to 16 points are matching or there, you can say both fingerprint belong to the same person. Right? 12 to 16 points of matching are there. You can say both fingerprint belong to the same person. The higher the number, it is better. There are few conditions. There is variation of fingerprint. If there is complete absence, we call it as adermatoglyphia. If there is atrophy, celiac disease, dermatitis. Celiac disease, there is complete atrophy. Whereas dermatitis, there is only partial. You can remember C for celiac disease. Permanent alteration of fingerprints. Where do you get permanent alteration of fingerprints? It can be leprosy, electrocution, radiation. Right? Leprosy, electrocution, radiation. These are the conditions where there is permanent alteration of fingerprint itself. Otherwise, it is permanent, it doesn't change. There are some cases where there is increased space between the two ridges. Two lines will separate. Where do you get this? You can remember AIR. Air. In the air, it will fly out. Like that, this ridges fly. A for acromegaly, I for intermental paralysis, and R for rickets. Right? So remember, this is important. Suppose if you get only a part of fingerprint, you can use this study. This is called poroscopy, wherein you are studying the arrangement of sweat pores, opening of the sweat pores. It is not sebaceous pore, this is sweat pores. In between the fingerprint ridges, you can see some openings. These are all openings for sweat gland. And this is unique to each person. They'll ask you who invented the study. It was Locard's poroscopy. Edmund Locard, he invented this poroscopy. This is another method. Lip printing, we call it chiloscopy. We have a classification called Suzuki's classification. There is another method available, that is from the hard palate. Right? We have to study the rugae. And this, when you are studying the rugae, this is called rugoscopy, otherwise called as palatoscopy. This is called rugoscopy, also called as palatoscopy. They'll ask you from which part of the palate. Hard palate or soft palate? It is hard palate. They'll ask you from which part of the palate. Anterior part of the palate or posterior part of the palate? It is from the anterior part of the palate. You can use this rugae, and from that you can find out the study that is called rugoscopy. Fine? Tattoo marks. There's only one person that you can expect from the tattoo marks, which is so high yield. If the tattoo marks are so faint, it is not visible. How will you make it visible? Number one, you can examine with magnifying lens. Number two, you can use infrared photography to examine that, or you can as well use UV light to examine that. And remember, the most important one is, if nothing is visible, right, you can examine the regional lymph node examination, right? When you examine the regional lymph node, you'll be able to see the pigment of the tattoo in the regional lymph node also, because whenever you inject the dye into the skin through the lymphatics, it will be deposited in the regional lymph node. This is a regional lymph node where the dye is getting deposited. If the tattoo mark is not visible in that area, you look at the regional lymph node, you'll be able to find the tattoo mark. right? In the tattoo pigment will be there in the regional lymph node also. You can confirm the presence. So this study is called superimposition. Where do you use this superimposition? Suppose you have a person who's missing from that area, and after some time you got a skull from that area. You want to know whether this skull belongs to that person or not. You can use this superimposition. How will you do it? It can be photography, it can be videography. What you see now is photography. What you have to do is take the photograph of the missing person, take the skull, photograph the skull, superimpose each other, and then compare the landmarks. When you compare the landmarks, you need to see the inner canthus, outer canthus, alveolar margin, and nasion. All these margins you have to compare. All these landmarks you have to compare. If all the landmarks are exactly matching with each other, you can say the skull may belong to that person. Not confirmed, right? If the landmarks are not at all matching, you can definitely say the skull doesn't belong to the person. This is more of a negative value. If you want to exclude, this is a test of exclusion. You can exclude. It's more of a negative value. Right, so this is called superimposition. Remember, this is so important. The police recovered a skull from the forest. The relatives of a missing person gives his photograph to the skull. Which of the following method can be used? It is easy to find out that a superimposition. Right, so easy to find out.